student, today we will start the new chapter, that is valence bond theory. Okay, so in earlier lecture we have seen the Sedgwick theory and how the effective atomic number atomic number rule. Effective atomic number rule plays the important role while determining the stability and instability. So the Sedgwick theory have some advantages along with some disadvantages. So to overcome these disadvantages, Pauling proposed a new theory, that is valence bond theory. So we will see what exactly the how the compound where stability or how the complex compound geometry and its stability were determined by the valence bond theory. So very first we will go one by one, that is, as we know, the limitation of Werner and Sedgwick model. So it is necessary to search a new theory for the bonding in complexes. So the sometimes number of available orbitals needed for accommodating the electrons that did not agree with the number of available orbitals of the central atom or ion. So the sometimes again the expected and observed magnetic moments of the complex did not matches. So these are the some of the points which are the limitation of the Werner or Sedgwick theory. So in Werner and Sedgwick theory, there is a limitation that it cannot explain that the number of orbitals needed for accommodating the electrons that did not agree with the number of available orbitals of the central atom or ion, or it does not explain the expected and observed magnetic moment of the complex. Why these are not the match? Okay, sometimes we should, while calculate, when we calculate the magnetic moments and the actual calculate magnetic moments, have the difference, and why these differences happen. So this is also not explained by this theory. Okay, so the and again one of the main limitation of the Sedgwick theory is that as the ligand donate the lone pair of electron, so there is a accumulation of negative charge on the metal ion, and that leads to the its decrease in the stability. So this is also the point of objection. So again, so these are the some of the difficulties of the Werner and Sedgwick theory, which is not able to explain why such types happen while forming a complex. So to make this objection clear, Pauling improved his theory, and then the theory was applied to complex under the name of valence bond theory. So to overcome this limitation of Werner and Sedgwick, Pauling proposed a new theory that is known as valence bond theory. So we will see what exactly the valence bond theory. Okay. So there are some of the assumptions of the valence bond theory. So very first, the central metal ion in the complex makes available an adequate number of empty orbitals for the formation of coordinate bond with suitable ligands. That is, the number of empty orbitals made available for the purpose is always equal to the coordination number of the central ion. So always remember, very first, this is the very first and very important assumption of the valence bond theory. Okay, that every metal atom has a number of empty orbitals made available. Any atom, central metal ion, available the empty orbital, how much? That is equal to its coordination number. Okay, so the number of empty orbitals made available for the purpose is equal to the coordination number of the central ion. Then the appropriate atomic orbitals s, p and d of the metal hybridized to give an equal number of new orbital of equivalent energy called hybrid orbitals. So you know how which hybrid orbitals are of equivalent energy. Okay. Now we know s, p and d orbital. These all the three orbital having a different energy. But when this undergoes hybridization and gives a new equivalent set of equivalent energy called hybrid orbitals. So the appropriate atomic orbitals s, p and d of the metal hybridized to give an equal number of new orbitals of equivalent energy called hybrid orbitals, and these hybrid orbitals are directed towards the ligand position according to the geometry of the complex. So Valence bond theory is very important to determine its geometry of the complex. But this is the one of the limitation of Sedgwick theory, that it fails to explain the geometry of the complex. So how the geometry of the complex, uh, whether it is tetrahedral, octahedral, square planar, whatever the geometry, so this is depend upon the position of the ligand according to the geometry of the complex, or directed, the hybrid orbitals are always directed towards the ligand position according to the geometry. Okay, so there is a how the ligand will arrange around the central metal ion, that is important, and this determine or this governs the its geometry. Okay, then again the d orbitals involved in hybridization may be inner. Okay, these are the assumptions while solving a problem. When we will see the hybridization, then we will better understand what is the inner or outer. Okay, uh, so that will, at that time, the concept of inner and outer orbital will be more clear. But for assumption, for better understanding, we will see the example. But for initially, we should know this assumption, that is the d orbitals involved in hybridization may be inner, which is n minus 1 d orbitals, or the outer nd orbitals. For example, octahedral hybridization may be either n minus 1 d2sp3 or nsp3d2. The complexes thus form are referred to as a low spin and high spin complexes. So while the low spin and high spin complexes, it will also governs its magnetic properties. So we have already seen one of the limitation, that why the some complexes having a different magnetic moment as expected and calculated. So why this happen? So this is the reason that some of the complexes form inner orbital complexes or outer orbital complexes. Then also the hybridization is also different, that is whether it is d2sp3 or sp3d2. So this is complex also referred as low spin and high spin complexes. So how the high spin and low spin complexes gives different magnetic moment, or we can say that different magnetic properties like diamagnetic or paramagnetic. Okay, so these are the some. This is determined by the which orbital is involved. D orbital is involved while forming a bond, or undergoes a hybridization to give the new equivalent hybrid orbitals. Okay, so again, each ligand has at least one orbital containing a lone pair of electrons for the purpose of donation and forming a sigma bond. As we know, ligand is any species, either it is anion or neutral species, any species. You cannot say that it is always having a negative charge. Okay, so it is either neutral or charged species which can donate the lone pair of electron, having a tendency to donate a lone pair of electron, and that is called as ligand. Ligand is any species. Okay, any species but which has a capacity, or which has the capability to donate the lone pair of electron, and that is known as the ligand. So each ligand at least have a one orbital containing a lone pair of electrons for the purpose of donation and forms a sigma bond. So always remember, ligand has the capacity to form a sigma bond, and it has a lone pair of electrons, or having a one orbital which contain a lone pair of electron for which purpose? For donation purpose and forming a bond, that is sigma bond. So the empty or hybrid orbitals of metal ion overlap with the fully filled orbitals of ligand. So always remember, one orbital is empty and another orbital is fully filled. So which having a fully and which having empty, that is we should know, that is always remember, metal atom having a empty hybrid orbital, while on the other side metal ligand having always fully filled hybrid orbitals. Okay, so what happen? So donate electron from the ligand can donate to the metal ion which having a hybrid empty hybrid orbitals. On the other side, ligand having a hybrid orbital with fully filled, or that is the two electron is there. Okay, and that can donate the lone pair of electron to the empty hybrid orbitals of the metals and forming a bond, that is ligand to metal coordinated bond, The number of such bond varies with the number of empty orbitals made available by the central ion. So we have seen already that having a two bond or coordinate bond 2, 3, 4, 5, that is coordinate number. Coordination number, that is means coordination number is nothing but the how many number of ligands were attached to the central line. If it is 2, that means this coordination number is 2. If ligands were attached 3, that means its coordination number is 3. So that is the empty hybrid orbitals of metal ion overlap with the fully filled orbitals of the ligand, forming the metal ligand coordinate bond. The number of such bond varies with the number of empty orbitals made available by the central ion. Then the next assumption of the valence bond theory is the metal electrons which do not take part in hybridization occupy the inner d orbitals. They are known as non-bonding electrons. Okay, so the metal electrons which takes part in the bonding are important, but the electrons which do not take part in hybridization occupy the always inner d orbitals, and they are known as non-bonding metal electrons. Then again there is also possibility of formation of pi bond in addition to sigma bond. Okay, so here is this is important that we always remember think that the ligand and metal bond is always form a sigma bond, but there is a possibility of formation of pi bond in addition to sigma bond, and this is possible only when the filled d orbital of the metal can overlap with the empty orbital of ligand. So there are some cases in which the back bonding donation, that is now till we have seen that always lone pair of electron of the ligand will donate to the metal. Okay, but in some cases what happen, excess negative charge or electron having a present on metal, and metal can donate the again electron to the empty orbital of ligand. Okay, and such type of bonding or this kind of pi bonding increases the strength of the sigma bond and changes the charge distribution on both metal and the ligand. So this is the possibility when the metal donate the lone pair of electron back to the empty orbital of ligand. So at that time the pi bonding form, and that pi bonding increases the strength of sigma bond and thus changes the charge distribution on both metal and ligand. So from the knowledge of unpaired electrons present in the complex, valence bond theory able account for many stereochemical and magnetic properties of coordination compound. So by knowing how hybridization or how the electron pair were donated, how the bonding will takes place between the metal and lone pair orbital, so we can calculate whether the number of unpaired electron is present or whether all the electrons were paired while forming a bond. So from VBT we can calculate its number of paired or unpaired electron, and if we know how whether the unpaired or paired electron is there, then it can determine the stereochemical and magnetic properties of many coordination compounds. So this is the very important assumption of valence bond theory. So now what is the diamagnetic? Okay, as we know that one of the most important assumption of the valence bond theory is it gives the information regarding whether the complex having an unpaired electron or pairing electron. Now diamagnetic. So what is diamagnetic? In diamagnetic all the electrons are paired. Okay, there is a no unpaired electron. So when which compound is a diamagnetic? So a substance which does not contain any unpaired electron is repelled by magnetic field and said to be diamagnetic. So always remember, any substance which does not contain any unpaired electron is repelled by magnetic field and is said to be diamagnetic. So diamagnetic, that is having all the electrons are paired. Okay, all the electrons are paired, and if it is paired, then these electrons were repelled by the magnetic field and said to be diamagnetic. Now what is paramagnetic? It's exactly opposite to the diamagnetic. If diamagnetic is that does not contain any unpaired electron, what will be the in paramagnetic? The paramagnetic is the substance or compound which contain unpaired electron. Okay, and now again, so here if it is exactly opposite, if it is paired in paramagnetic, it is paired. Now it is repelled by magnetic field. What will be then paramagnetic? Now it will be attracted. Okay. So it is exactly opposite to the diamagnetic, that is a substance which contain one or more unpaired electron. Okay, which contain one or more unpaired electron is attracted by magnetic field and it's said to be paramagnetic. So valence bond theory gives the this properties, magnetic properties, that is whether the complex is diamagnetic or paramagnetic. This is very important. Okay, so paramagnetic is a substance which having a one or more unpaired electron and which is attracted, okay, which is attracted by magnetic field and said to be paramagnetic. What happen in diamagnetic? Diamagnetic, that is there are always pairing electron or there is a no unpaired electron. Okay, there is no unpaired electron and this were in the repelled by the magnetic field and said to be diamagnetic. Okay, so next we will see the concept of hybridization. What is the concept of hybridization, how it is important while determining the geometry or stability of the complex, or to know its geometry, that is whether it is octahedral, tetrahedral, whether it is high spin, low spin, or to know the its magnetic properties, that is whether the complex having a paired unpaired electron. So for that purpose we should know the concept of hybridization, which is very important while determining the its stability, its geometry, its magnetic and stereochemical properties. So the for that purpose concept of hybridization is very important. So we will see uh, how the hybridization takes place according to the valence bond theory. So in order to form a strong bonds between the metal and the ligands, the overlap of metal orbitals and ligand orbitals should be highly effective. If stronger the bond or stronger the overlapping, extent of overlapping is stronger, that means the bond will be formed stronger. If extent of overlapping is low, at that time the bond formed between the metal and ligand is very weak. Okay, so the to form the strong bond between metal and ligand, the overlap of metal orbital with ligand should be very effective. Extent of overlapping is required. For this purpose, atomic orbitals of the metals undergo hybridization to form a new set of equivalent orbitals with definite directional properties. So for that purpose, atomic orbitals having a s, p, d, f orbital. So the metal orbitals undergoes the atomic orbitals of the metal undergoes hybridization to form a new set of equivalent orbitals with definite directional properties. Okay. So the combination of atomic orbitals of different energy to give equivalent orbitals is known as hybridization. We know the definition of hybridization. From 11-12 we have seen the definition of hybridization, that is when a combination of atomic orbitals undergoes a mixing and recasting, when the combination of atomic orbitals of different energies undergoes mixing and recasting to produce or generate equivalent orbitals of energy, equivalent energy of orbitals, and that is process is known as hybridization. Okay, so the atomic orbitals having different energy s, p, d, but they undergo mixing and recasting and produce a new equivalent energy of orbitals, and that process is known as hybridization. So the combination of s and 3p orbitals gives the tetrahedral hybrid sp3 hybrid orbitals. As we know, 1s and 3p orbitals gives the tetrahedral hybrid sp3 orbital. So the other hybrid orbitals are formed as a result of combination of s, p and d atomic orbitals. So similarly, what will be the happen when s, p and d orbitals undergoes hybridization, whether it is from sp3d2, sp3d, d2sp3, dsp3, sp2, whatever the possibility or whatever the hybrid orbitals form, and result gives a combination of s, p and d atomic orbitals, and that is the gives the whether the complex is octahedral, tetrahedral, square planar. So how this is the determined by the whether the how the combination of s, p and d atomic orbitals and gives equivalent energy orbitals forms, and that is how the hybridization will be takes place, whether it is sp3 d, sp2, sp2 d, d, like this. Okay, so these are the concept of hybridization. Then this is the table which show whether the coordination number when 2, 3, 4, what will be the possible geometry of the complexes, and these are the examples. Okay, so we will solve all these examples. At that time you will understand how this geometry is there, how which orbital is formed. So whenever the coordination number is 2, at that time the geometry of the complex is always remember either linear or diagonal. Okay, so the hybridization in whenever it is two atomic orbitals or coordination number is 2, at that time hybridization is always sp, and the geometry of the complex is linear or diagonal. And these are the examples of copper complexes. Now again, if it is a 3, what will be the coordination number of the compound having a 3? The hybridization is undergo always sp2, and the geometry of the complex is trigonal planar or equilateral triangle. And again there is a complexes of copper. Okay, so trigonal planar, it is a regular geometry, but whenever it is a disturb, there is a change in or the disturbance in the geometry, that is also known as distorted trigonal planar. We will see all these example one by one, and we will determine how the geometry of the complex according to the valence bond theory. Then again, this is very important whenever the coordination number is 4. Okay, all you can see here. So always remember there is a two possible geometries, that is either square planar or tetrahedral. So whenever the coordination number is 4, at that time possibility of two geometries either square planar or tetrahedral. So it is determined whether the which orbital is used, whether it is inner d or outer d. So that is very important. So now again in this the type of hybridization is dsp2, sp2d and sp3. So always remember if it is sp3, that means it is tetrahedral geometry. If it is dsp2 or sp2d, that means it is square planar. Okay, and the orbital which is involved while forming a dsp2 is 3d x square minus y square and 4s, and p orbitals 4x 4p y. Okay, if it is sp2d, then it is 4s 4px 4py and 4d x square minus y square. See here the difference, it is inner complex. Okay, and this is outer. The reason is that the d orbital is outer side, and here it is 3d x square minus y square orbital is used, and here it is 4d x square minus y square. Though the geometry of the complex is similar, that is square planar. Okay, and now in sp3, so this is 4s 4px 4py and 4pz. So whenever the sp3 hybridization is there, the orbital which undergoes hybridization is 4s 4px 4py 4pz. Okay, these are the some of the examples of square planar and tetrahedral. Now what happens when coordination number of the metal atom is 5? So always remember whenever the coordination number of atomic number is 5, at that time the geometry of the complex are two possibilities. One is trigonal bipyramidal and another one is square pyramidal. Okay, so which compound gives trigonal bipyramidal, which compound gives square pyramidal, we will see in our example. So in this table we will see while forming complex D sp3, the atomic orbital, here see, here is the difference. Here it is 3d z square, and here in this it is 3d x square minus y square. Okay, so how the ligands were arranged towards the z axis or towards the x or towards the xy. So that is the difference between the trigonal bipyramidal and square pyramidal. So how the direction of the ligand is directed towards the metal atom. If it is along the z axis in dsp3, then the geometry will be the trigonal bipyramidal, and if it is the ligands were directed towards the xy axis in 3D, then it is a square pyramidal. And these are the some of the examples of trigonal, bipyramidal and square pyramidal. Then again, if the coordination number of the metal ion is 6, that is coordination number is 6, that means how many number of ligands were attached to the metal ion? The number of 6. So 6 electrons were, sorry, 6 ligands were attached to the metal ion, forms a complex. So again in this there is again two possibility, that is geometry of the complex, whether it is inner orbital octahedral or outer orbital octahedral. So always remember, if it is inner octahedral complexes, the hybridization is always D2sp3. If it is outer orbital octahedral, at that time it is sp3 D2, and the orbitals which are undergoes hybridization is in D2sp3 is 3d x square minus y square and 3d z square, while in sp3d2 which orbital undergoes hybridization? This 4d x square minus y square and 4d z square, along with the 4s, 4px, 4py and 4pz. Okay, so this is the difference between how the inner orbital octahedral and outer orbital octahedral, and this gives the concept of whether the complex is high spin, low spin, or whether the complex is diamagnetic, paramagnetic. So this is the very important feature or characteristic of the VBT. So in this lecture we have seen the how the why the valence bond theory is necessary to overcome the limitations of the Werner and Sidgwick theory. This theory is proposed by the Pauling, and how this theory is important while determining the hybridization, geometry of the complex, stereochemical properties, again the magnetic properties. Magnetic properties depend upon the number of unpaired or paired electron present in this complex. If it is a the molecule or substance having a paired electron, the compound is repelled by the magnetic field and known as diamagnetic. If a complex having a unpaired electron, that electrons were attracted by the magnetic field and the complex is said to be the paramagnetic. So we have seen the example how the if the coordination number is 2, which geometry is possible. If coordination number is 3, trigonal, planar or equilateral triangle. If coordination number is 4, then there is a possibility of again two geometry, that is either it is square planar or tetrahedral. In square planar again which orbital is used? Either inner or outer, dsp2 or sp2d. Then we have see the when the coordination number is 5, again there is a possibility of two geometries, that is either trigonal bipyramidal or square pyramidal. Okay, in this and if the coordination number is 6, what will be the geometry? No doubt it is octahedral, but the orbital involved, whether it is dsp2, d2sp3 or sp3d2. So that governs the either its inner orbital octahedral or outer orbital octahedral, and this gives the concept of low spin, high spin. So when we will solve the example, we will see the hybridization of the complex. We will better understand how the complex is high spin, low spin, or paramagnetic, diamagnetic. Okay, so this is for all today's lecture. This is the very introductory part of the valence bond theory. So this is about the introduction of the valence bond theory. Thank you.